Welcome to the Degrees of Health podcast. We explore physical, social, and emotional health, and all the different tangents and topics that encompass what it means to live a healthy life in a modern day society. As you can imagine, it's pretty vast, and this is forever an evolving conversation, and we're learning on the fly with you. So come along for the ride, and we're thrilled to have you. This week, we had the pleasure of speaking with Sian Richardson. Sian is the founder of the Blue Tits Chill Swimmers cold water swimming group. When I say group, there's over 200 groups globally and over 150,000 members. This started from her own Ice Smile swim, which turned into her training at a local beach, and people took note. People started to realize what she was up to and started to join her. One thing led to another, one group led to 200, and now she has a massive worldwide community of people who enjoy swimming together. We speak about the unique combination of how the cold and that community fosters a greater connection, the human need to belong, how small wins compound to greater self-esteem, how unplanned time fosters more fun in life, finding and developing your own niche, overthinking, and the cold water. I had a great time talking to Sian. I think you'll see what a bundle of energy she is. She's brilliant, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Sian, thank you so much for doing this. We love the Blue Tits, and I was counting up all the flocks this morning, which is the group, or the different groups, different subgroups of the Blue Tits, and I actually stopped counting because I would be there for a while. How have you done this? Was this a big plan from the beginning? Was it a completely random chance, serendipity? How did it all start?
It was completely random. So I can't really remember how old I was at the time. I should really look at this because I talk about it all the time. I was probably in my early 40s, and I've got 5 children, and I live on a farm above a beach in Pembrokeshire, and I have a very lovely life. I was born here, and I love this area, and I've always used this area for everything that it has, that it offers me. So the children have all grown up on the sea, in the sea, around the sea. And I suddenly found myself staring at a wall one day, and I really didn't know why. And my husband said, "You're not very well." And I was like, "Don't be ridiculous." So again, going back a little bit, I was an only child, and I had a very strong, adventurous mother. But we were very much the family of the stiff upper lip. And you just soldiered on, and you did things, and you tried things, whether you wanted to or not. You just did it. My mother always used to say, if you don't like it, don't do it again. So when I found myself staring at a wall, I was a little bit confused. And I went to the doctor, and he kind of very offhandedly said, "Oh, you've got a touch of depression. Here we are, have some tablets, you'll be fine." And I was mortified by this. So now, of course, we're all much more used to talking about our mental health and our emotions. But then, kind of 20 years ago, particularly coming from the background that I had, you did not talk about mental health issues. So I took the tablets, and I just couldn't get my head around this at all. But I was starting to feel a bit better, but with the tablets. But the tablets didn't sit well with me. Again, this comes from my childhood, where my mother would say, "We'll just go for a good walk and everything will be fine." And so I went back to the doctor after 6 months, and I said, I can't be on these things forever. And he said, "Well, you might have to be." And this horrified me. And then by chance I met somebody, and I told them about this, and they said, "You just need to take up running." Now this was not something that I'd ever considered. So in school, I was the artistic, on the stage, singing, acting type. I was not the sporty type. I was quite chunky, and I used to have the mick taken out of me for being chunky. So I found my place on a stage, and I loved being on a stage. But sport, not a chance. So I could have bumped into a skydiver or a swimmer, but I didn't. I bumped into a runner. And so in my head at the time, I thought, well, that's it. The only thing that's going to make me feel better is to start running. So I did, but in the dark, because I was a little bit embarrassed that Sian Richardson from St David's, who'd had the mick taken out of her most of her young life, had suddenly decided to take up running. So I live here right out in the middle of nowhere. So running in the dark was fine. But as I started running, I couldn't understand why anybody did run because it was horrific. But little by little, I did start to feel better and I started running in the daylight. And I thought, gosh, this is actually quite good. So I signed up for a 5K. And then, me being me, I will always look into the furthest distance I can of anything that I do and see what people do. And so, of course, that's marathons and ultra marathons. So the 5K became a 10K, became a half marathon, became a marathon, became an ultra marathon. And then I was loving it. I could not believe how I felt so good. So I've always been active, I've always been outdoors, but I'd never really pushed myself beyond or to a limit that I kind of had already given myself. And now I was going way beyond this. So I started doing triathlons. And my daughter said, who was doing it with me at the time, she was 16, 17, and she'd started doing triathlons, you need to learn to swim. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I probably do, don't I? So I could swim, but I wasn't a heads down swimmer. I was just I was a dipper. And so I started swimming, and then that's it. We started doing long distance swims and all sorts of things. And then, to cut a long story short, which is not, I'm not cutting it short at all. It's already quite a long story. Um, I I signed up for Ironman. So my daughter had done Ironman, and so I trained with her. I signed up for Ironman, the Tembe Ironman, which is the sixth hardest Ironman in the world, but it's just down the road. So I thought, what the hell, I'll do it. And I pretty much knew that this time I'd bitten off a little bit more than I could chew. And my body was starting to complain a bit now. We're 10, 15 years in, and I'm getting older. And I've done a lot of running and cycling and things. And so anyhow, I had to go at Ironman, got pulled out because I wasn't fast enough, and that was fine. I mean, I was fine. I was okay. With all the running and triathloning things I ever did, I was always a have-a-go hero. I was never somebody who was trying to win. I was always somebody who was just trying to get to the start line, to be honest. And if I got any further, that was always a bonus. So I said, right, that's it. I'm giving it all up. I've done years and years of this. Now I'm fed up of it. But somebody said, yeah, nah, you love a challenge. Have you ever heard of the ice mile? Which I hadn't. All I heard was the word mile. And I thought, well, that can't be very difficult. So I threw away my wetsuit, went down here to the beach where I live. It was October. It was 13, 14 degrees in the water. Got in without my wetsuit and thought, blimey, this is cold. If this is 14 degrees, what on earth is 5 going to feel like? So the ice mile has to be swum in a swimsuit or trunks in water that is under 5 degrees. So it was quite shocking and it wasn't very pleasant. But I liked it. I liked the idea of this. So, of course, I Googled it and I found out that only 300 people in the world had done it. No Welsh women had done it at the time. No Welsh people had done it at the time. So I thought, this is going to be mine. I'm going to do it. Having no idea how difficult this challenge was going to be. It's probably one of the most, not difficult, maybe challenging things I've ever done. But I was enjoying it and I was making a lot of noise. I always make a lot of noise. I always make a lot of noise. So I was swimming here in Pembrokeshire, and this was 2014, and it was very unusual to see people in swimsuits in the winter in 2014. It was unusual to see people in wetsuits unless they were surfers. So people were coming up to me on the beach and saying, "What are you doing?" In some cases, "What are you doing? Are you all right? Are you mad? I've been standing here on the beach waiting for you to come out because I thought there was something wrong." I had all sorts of interesting reactions, but I had a few people who were really interested and they were keen to join me. So one by one they did, and this was a very slow one by one. So the first winter went by, I was nowhere near doing an ice mile. The second winter went by, the third winter went by. And by now, I had 20, 30 people around here who were coming with me to swim, not to train for the ice mile. I had to go off and do that by myself now because there were so many people swimming with me. I mean, as in 20 people. The ice mile was a totally different thing. So we were dipping. And I was loving it, absolutely loving being with these people and never having done anything like this before, where actually an awful lot of time is talking an awful lot of time is spent talking, a tiny bit of time is actually spent doing the sport, and then another awful lot of time is spent talking afterwards. But the laughing, the noise, the camaraderie with us all, it was, I again never experienced this in any sport. And I came back from the swim one day, and my husband said, I've never seen you so happy. He said, what are you doing when you go? What are you doing? Because he again couldn't understand when I'd say, well, we only actually swim for 2 minutes. But he said, well, you've been gone 4 hours. You know, what on earth have you been doing? And he said, you should call yourself something. He said, the blue tits is funny because you come back and your tits are blue. And I just thought, yeah, do you know what? That is funny. It fitted everything that I was experiencing with these people. It fitted. So we called ourselves the Blue Tits. We had a little logo made. We had, you know, some badges made because I come from a Girl Guide kind of Blue Peter background. So I've always loved a badge. And I started giving people badges, and on we went. I did the ice mile. By now, I just needed to get this ice mile out of the way because I was having far too much fun with all these other people to be training in water that was, you know, 6 degrees, 5 degrees for 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was. And so I did it, got it out the way. And it was great. I was absolutely relieved. And people were saying, gosh, that's amazing. You're going to do it again? No, I'm never doing that again. It was fantastic, but I'm not doing it again. So we have a campsite here where I live, and people come obviously on their holidays here in the summer, and they were seeing me swimming now across the little bay that we have here, again in a swimsuit, which they were still intrigued by because a lot of people put wetsuits on to swim. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. We call ourselves the Blue Tits. So these are people from all around Britain, and they were then going, this is amazing. I love it. Can I start a Blue Tit group in wherever they lived? And so they did. And again, it was a very loose affair. I just give people a bag of badges and say, yes, every time anybody swims with you, whether it's once or and never again, give them a little badge. Let's share this joy. And we were growing now because there were more and more groups starting, and I just didn't. I was just spending so much time talking to these people, and I loved it, and giving out badges. And of course, my husband said, do you realize how much money we're spending on badges? And I then kind of like, I don't want to know. But I had to look. And so I started selling some T-shirts and sweatshirts and things just to pay for the badges, really, because I was loving the fact that people were putting their pictures on Facebook, and they were so proud of having a little badge, because it turns out there's thousands of people like me who love a little badge. And then it just got really, really big, and I was very fortunate to meet a lady who did social media, a lady who was an event organizer, and a lady who was an accountant. And they said, this is amazing. We love being Blue Tits, but we also love seeing other people enjoying the Blue Tits. And now I was, of course, getting stories about how people's lives had changed because of being in the Blue Tits. And I was like, well, why? Why has your life changed? And this could be anything from their mental health, their physical health, menopausal, loneliness, all sorts of things. So we'd never, ever put a label on the Blue Tits. We'd never said, because there was no plan, of course, so we never said, oh, we go swimming for our mental health, or we go swimming for our physical health. It was just we just go dipping. And all these stories coming in about how people's lives were being changed was fascinating to me. And also the stories about how much courage people had found just to turn up, because a lot of people were saying, oh, no, I can't swim, or goodness me, no, I don't want to go into cold water. Why would you want to go into cold water? So they'd spend then a lot of time thinking about this. They'd seen the pictures on Facebook. They'd seen people in pictures who looked like them, the same size as them, the same age as them. And they were looking and looking and looking and thinking, yeah, that looks like me. I think I could do it. They were checking to make sure we weren't all checking our Garmins, to where we're going to put our goggles on and our hats, and where we standing there going, oh, look at us, we're amazing. And we weren't. Most of the pictures were of people just laughing and eating cake and standing in the water with their arms up going, whoa, and all of this kind of stuff. So they were encouraged to come along, and maybe we then had the stories, well, I've been watching you for 6 months. I've been watching you for a year. I used to see people on the beach watching us, and then I'd go over and say, would you like to join us? No, 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 no. And then 3 weeks later, I'd find them again watching us and say, you don't have to swim. Just come and join us. And they did. And they would just sit there and have a cup of coffee or whatever. So the group started to grow in very, very many different ways. Different people were joining. And as I said, they were saying, oh, it's good for this, it's good for that. And then we found that our local doctor was saying, oh, you should just join the Blue Tits because it just seems like an awful lot of fun. And a lot of my patients have said that they've felt better just for being in the outdoors or just for getting out of the house once a week. So we grew and grew and grew, and these lovely people that I met said, let's turn this into a not-for-profit. Let's turn it into a limited company. And we did. And then lockdown happened. And I thought, well, that's it. That's the death knell now. But never mind, we've had a marvelous time. We'll all just keep talking to each other on Facebook. But it had the opposite effect because, of course, we couldn't go anywhere, could we? We couldn't go to leisure centres, and we couldn't meet people. So the group started growing because people were joining the Facebook pages just to interact with people online. And the fun element of this, of course, people were putting themselves into ice baths with their swimsuits on. They were throwing buckets of water over each other. So they grew and grew and grew. And then when we were allowed that little bit of freedom, one of the things you could do was swim outdoors or meet outdoors. So we were meeting here, say whatever it was in Pembrokeshire, 2 or 4, and we were keeping social distancing on the beach, but we were shouting at each other because we could all walk to the beaches around here, and a lot of people could walk to rivers, lakes, and the sea. So we're all shouting at each other and still spending 3 hours then sitting on the beach, but shouting at each other, and we could still swim. So when lockdown eventually finished, the groups exploded. It went absolutely mad. And it's really kind of continued. And now, of course, there are a lot of groups out there. All sorts of people have started up their own little dipping groups, which I love. It doesn't matter to me what you call yourselves. It's just that we are all in the outdoors, which is far more important to me than, what you call yourself. And it's continued to evolve. And so we also got a lot of interest from media companies, particularly at the beginning when we started swimming, because we were loud, we were colourful, and we were all willing to go on radio programs and TV programs, and presenters wanted to swim with us on certain programs, and it was all deemed as a little bit of fun. Because we were loud and proud and a little bit silly, it was all funny, and I loved it all. And of course, all of that helped us grow, didn't it? Because people were intrigued by us. We were predominantly women, but I never ever put a label on that again, because that's not how I am. I don't mind how anybody identifies. I like it when humans come together. I'm not interested in all of that. We're just humans, and we should all. I love that when we all interact with each other. But it was thought that we were a women-only group. So when we became a social enterprise, we just made that very clear that we are for everybody. And it's got to a place now where we've been asked, is it for your mental health? Is it for your physical health? Is it for this? Is it for that? And it's like, well, yes, it's for everything. And then and recently, what's really come to the forefront for me is the community aspect of it, because I kind of felt this pressure to put some label on the Blue Tits. What are we good for? Why are we here? Why do we do this? And actually, I really like this one for community. Being in this community for no particular reason other than to meet, talk rubbish, have a little dip, or not have a little dip, just be there, come out and talk more rubbish, is what I find is so good for us. There's that kind of no plan. It's that time in the day where you don't have to plan for anything. I mean, as long as you've got your swimsuit and your towel, you're kind of okay. I mean, and I know once you've been doing this for 6 months, you've got an enormous kit that takes a van. You turn up with every single thing there is possible, because again, as the movement has grown, as outdoor swimming, dipping has grown, companies are now producing things, lovely, lovely, shiny things that we all need. But or want. But it's the community aspect of it
Mm.
that I focus on a lot now. Just seeing people from all walks of life, identifying however they identify, coming together as a group. I suppose I should let you talk now, really, shouldn't I?
Well, to be honest, Sean, I mean, I was just thinking that you come across so well, and I was thinking, wow, you really know what you're talking about, and it feels so authentic. And I think the best brands, the best communities, the best groups of people, tribes, whatever you want to call it, they spring from genuine authenticity, and people warm to that. I think it's in our DNA. When you can feel someone being so authentic, I think they latch on to that, and I think that Blue Tits is the best example of it. It sounds like you were just doing you, and that resonates with people, and it snowballed from there. So there's a couple of things I want to click on, if I may. You mentioned humans, and I think you're in a really interesting vantage point, a really interesting space to notice humans and their quirks and their different intricacies and what they're like. What have you learned about humans from doing all this?
I've learned that no matter how we might appear or what our profession is, and therefore how people might perceive us because of that, we all have a fear inside us about being accepted or not accepted. And so you can have the most seemingly confident person. They have a powerful job. They've spent a long time building up their career. They have a high standing in the community. But inside, we all have this fear that we're not quite going to be accepted or we don't fit in for whatever reason that is. It might be our age, it might be the size of our bodies. That's one thing, of course, that has come up and continues to rear its head a lot, particularly because we are doing our sport in a tiny little piece of lycra. And so our bodies are very much exposed. Our scars, our wrinkles, our wobbly bits, our wrinkly bits are all there for the world to see. And I used to, and still do, hear an awful lot of who would want to see this body? And I've always been a confident person, so I am one of these people that comes across as very confident. But I've had my body issues all my life. I was that big chunky girl in school, and that has stuck with me all my life. And I've been all sizes you can imagine. I've done everything that a lot of other people have done. I've been fat, I've lost weight. I've been fat, I've lost weight. All of these things. And I've heard those words when I've lost the weight. Oh my goodness me, you look amazing. And that goes in our heads, doesn't it? That, oh, people only tell me I look amazing when I'm thin. So when I started triathloning and all the running, I was quite chunky, and I that's partly why I ran in the dark, not just because I didn't want people to think that, oh, Sian Phillips from school, look at her, who does she think she is? But it was also because I was quite big, and I didn't. Again, that went back to school. Big people don't run. Big people don't go out and do exercise. And so as I then started swimming with the Blue Tits and putting on swimsuits, still quite chunky, I didn't really like it. I didn't like now because now I was going on TV a lot as well, and I was in newspaper articles, and I'm looking at myself in these pictures thinking, oh, blimey, look at you. But that started to go. The more and more I swam and spent time with the people, that's more important than the swimming bit here. The more I spent time with different human beings, the more I realized that we all have these issues, even if we are seemingly socially perfect, thin. I swam with somebody who would be stereotypically described as a beautiful. She was young, tall, blonde, beautiful figure, lovely personality, everything that is socially gorgeous, you know. And we were having a photograph taken. And so she, we were all lining up. And somebody said to her, oh, no, don't stand next to me, you'll make me look fat. And they called her a skinny, I don't know if I can say, well,
You say whatever you want.
okay, they called her a skinny bitch. They said, don't stand next to me, you skinny bitch, you'll make me look fat. And I said, oh, everyone went, ha, ha, ha. And she moved to the very end of the group. And when we were talking afterwards, there was a look on her face. And I said, are you all right? And she said, all my life I have been called a skinny, and it's been followed by bitch. And
Oh,
she said, and I feel that I am just causing people problems all the time. And I'm so fed up of being called a skinny bitch. And that was an incredible moment for me. That made me realize, again, it was one of those other moments that I realized it doesn't matter whether you're fat, thin, beautiful, how the world sees you. Still inside, you have your own issues that you've grown up with or that, have appeared over the years. And so I've really enjoyed that. Me personally, I've got rid of that now, that worry about my body image. And I've seen it in other people. So you'll see them when they arrive. They might wear a wetsuit. I mean, people, we don't mind what people wear, but they might wear a wetsuit, and then 3 months later they take it off, or they might wear a full rash vest or a t-shirt over their bodies for all sorts of different reasons. We had somebody who did it. We never ask people why they're wearing t-shirts and leggings. It's entirely up to them. There is often a reason. And this lady, she then one day she put a bikini on, and we didn't say anything, of course, because why would we? We're not looking at each other. This is the other thing that I learned. We're not looking at each other. We are so consumed by how we look to the world. We're not staring at other people because we're just there thinking, I hope people aren't staring at me. And you're looking down, you're getting changed. It's not something that you're doing, looking at other people. And so she went swimming, came out, we're having a cup of coffee, and she said, well, thank you, everybody. And we went, what for? And she said, for not mentioning my scars. And so she had an awful lot of scars all over her body. Genuinely, nobody had noticed. But that's why she'd been wearing her t-shirt and her leggings, was to cover her scars. And then she, from being with us all, also realized that nobody is staring at you. So that's one of the big things, again, that people overthink before they come swimming or dipping or just sitting on, with us. Oh, people will look at my body. If they come along and even not swimming and just sit there, they soon realize that actually nobody is looking at anybody. And of course, there are so many different beautiful bodies there. Tall, short, fat, thin, old, young, disabled, disfigured. It doesn't matter. But you have to come along to realize that, because you're sitting at home thinking about it, and in your head, you are far too old and wrinkly to swim. You think that nobody is going to want you there, or nobody's going to want to look at you. Nobody is looking at you. And another part of this is the adrenaline. So even now, 10 years I've been going into cold water, I've been meeting groups, you still get this certain amount of adrenaline that builds up. You still think, oh, is it going to be very cold today? Oh, is everybody there going to like me? Am I going to fit in? And so the adrenaline starts. And so this fires through your brain, and it powers you forward. It keeps you going. It enables you to take that next step. And you're getting undressed and you're thinking still, oh, is it going to be cold? It doesn't look very nice today. Oh, my goodness me. And so again, you're not concentrating on things around you. You're concentrating on yourself. Your brain is saying, come on, we've got to do this. We've got to keep you alive. But you don't know that until you turn up. So I always say I can get people in the water if I can get them to the shore, if we can get them there. And I probably talk about this every single day, where people say, I would love to join you, but, and I always say, now stop overthinking. You're overthinking all of this. You're putting all of these thoughts to the front of your mind. Am I too old? Am I too thin? Am I going to get cold? Am I going to make a fool of myself? This is the other thing that we all worry about. Are we going to fit in? Are we going to make a fool of ourselves? Are we going to scream so loud? Are we going to piss our pants? Are we going to run? And I can't. Stop overthinking it. Just turn up. Whatever it is that you want to do, whether that's swimming, running, I don't know, whatever. Turn up. And any group that is worth their salt that you join will never make a big deal about you turning up. They'll just say, hello and welcome. Have you done this before? Do you want some help? Stick with me, hold my hand. So one of the reasons I continue to make so much noise when I get into the water is to, particularly when new people are around, it's to let other people know that it's fine to be you. If you want to scream, if you want to swear, I mean, again, that's another thing is swearing. People will say, can I swear when you turn up? And it's like, you can be whoever you want to be. Because in normal life, we don't in our working
Mm.
life. You know, most of us don't go around effing and jeffing all over the place because it's not particularly pleasant. But that time when you come to the sea and the cold water hits you and you swear, it's the great feeling because everybody else is doing it as well.
Yeah.
And so there's that moment of release where you're not in your usual everyday normal life. Somebody called it a reset button, and I quite like that because it's that moment where, with the adrenaline going through the body, again, adrenaline is fight or flight. So it clears your brain because it's your brain is saying, what are we doing here? Are we fighting? Are we running? Well, all I know is we have to keep this one alive, so let's
Mm.
keep her alive. Your brain empties of everything else. The only thing you think about at that moment is whoa, and your brain is just saying survive, survive, all systems go. So I've gone in a few times with a headache or in a really bad mood, and I've come out and gone, yep, that really worked for me.
Mm.
And I hear people saying this, you know, my partner will say, will you just go for a bloody swim? Go off to the blue tits, go and do something. And I get that now. I didn't at the
Mm.
beginning, but I get that now. It only takes half an hour, you know, of turning up.
100%.
And in that
It's
half an hour, there's only 2 minutes swimming, of course, or 3 minutes, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things to jump on there, Sean. I mean, I think the name the tits. We were talking about this morning. It seems that it self-selects for that kind of openness. I mean, blue tits. It's sort of an ode to not taking yourself that seriously, right? It's
Yeah.
come be whoever you want. I don't care about your job, your fancy title, you're not fancy title, whatever. No one cares. It's just about showing up and getting that small win. You mentioned mental health at the beginning, and when we're doing some research, we found this reference to small wins over and over again, and I think it was really, really important to mention. How has your view on mental health changed from when you started this?
Um, again, as I said at the beginning, the words mental health, and I still wasn't very comfortable about it. I'm still not incredibly comfortable about it until somebody said to me, it's not all about this. It's not all about being depressed and needing to not be depressed. It's just about being well. It's about being okay with yourself. It's about being happy. It's about being able to leave the house. It's about having things to look forward to in life and looking forward to those things that are coming in life. So I've changed my attitude to that from, again, this is my youth, you know, my childhood was shoulders back, here we go. It's not all about
Mm.
that. It's just about feeling okay and feeling happy and wanting to get out of bed in the morning. And so when people say, is cold water good for your mental health? It's, again, I go back to the community. It isn't just the cold water that makes us feel better. It's that wonderful feeling of belonging, of being needed, because we all are in a group. It doesn't matter what you do as a profession, and we often don't know what people do as for their professions, which I love. It can be 6 months down the line before somebody will say, well, when I was in the surgery this morning, and somebody will, are you a doctor then? Yeah, I am. And I like that. I like that.
Lovely, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that really intrigues me that we don't really know
Mm.
what people do. But no matter what you do, you find that in a group, hopefully, if it's a good group, you are valid in some way. You might be incredibly good at baking cakes. You might be very, very good at lending a shoulder for somebody to cry on. You might be very vigilant, and you're that person that is always looking in the group to make sure everybody's out of the water, to make sure everybody's brought a towel, make sure everybody has had a biscuit. Whatever it is, you will find that what you are good at it makes you valid in the group, and that makes you feel good. You might be that type of person that says, oh, I've never really been good at anything, and someone will say, oh, come on, You never ever leave here. You're always the last person to leave. You never ever leave until everybody's gone. You're brilliant. You're really caring, you are. And then you think, oh, well, yes, actually, I suppose I am. But you might have never thought of that as being something that was worthwhile. And so I think now that that's what makes us feel better, is just going along to a group and feeling valid. You've, again, the small wins. You've left the house. That is a massive win. We had a lady who turned up. She hadn't left the house for 2 years. One of her dog walker was a blue tit, and her dog walker said, "You should come and join the blue tits." And she said, "Well, no, because I can't leave the house." So she said, "Well, you can come in the car with me. Don't leave the car. Just sit in the car and just watch." So little by little she did, and then she eventually came and sat with us. So she had mobility issues. She always said from the beginning, "I don't want to swim." And everybody was, "Well, that's fine." And I said to her one day, "Can you light a fire? Because we have little fires on the beach here in the winter." And she said, "Yes, I can." I said, "There you go, box of matches, fire lighters, off you go. You are now chief firelighter." And she really took on this role of being the most amazing firelighter. This made a massive difference to this swim, because normally we would maybe light it before we go in, and then there's all this, it's windy, we've got to find the right space, and oh, damn it, I'm just going to go swimming. Or then we'd go through that process when we came out. She would have this roaring fire ready for us when we came out, and all the cups would be laid out. She'd make sure the packet of biscuits was open. And we loved her for it. So within a few weeks, she'd become this incredible member of the group. And of course, she knew this because we were telling her this. So she went and told her practice nurse how really pleased she was that she could now tie her own shoelaces. And the nurse said, "Well, how has this come about?" And she said, "Well, I joined the Blue Tits and I'm their chief firelighter. And so, of course, I've been bending down a lot and now I can tie my own shoelaces." I mean, isn't that incredible? To a lot
Brilliant.
of people in the world, that's like, what? You can tie your own shoelaces? Well, hell. But to her, this was life changing.
Mm,
That was a
definitely.
small win. And I always think when people try and they overthink. What happens if I da di da? Don't overthink it. Just come along and you'll one step at a time, literally one step at a time. So you can tie your own shoelaces. Well, you can leave the house. This is the first thing. You can meet a group of people. This is the second thing. You can now tie your own shoelaces. You've now decided you are going for a swim. Whatever it is, tiny, tiny, tiny wins all start to build and make you feel better. Yeah, I can do this. I can do all of these things. We all perhaps think far too much about what we can't do because of. And then we find we can do these little things. And then the bigger picture, you've got people who come along and say, "I can't swim. I'm only going up to my knees." And then they start feeling better now in the group because there's other people who are only going up to their knees. Doesn't matter. Nobody's laughing at them. Everybody's saying, "Well done for turning up." People actually like me. I found I'm quite funny. They then start to swim. They then go and get some swimming lessons. We helped a load of people, blue tits, become swim coaches a few years ago, and now they're running their little businesses around the UK. We've got a few here, and we go along to these swimming lessons. These are blue tit swimming lessons, so they're not all about, right, we're going to do 28 drills of this and this. There's still a lot of laughing. There's a lot of small wins going on here. There's a lot of encouragement. There's a lot of, "You are amazing." These people now decide to go along and do an event. This is the next step for them. It's huge. They've decided to swim the 25 meters at an event. And you're going to hear people saying, listening to this, 25 meters. Anybody can swim 25 meters. No, they can't. And it's not just about swimming the 25 meters. It's about turning up to that event. It's standing there going, "To the world." In your head, it's "to the world." Oh, who does she think she is? Oh my goodness me, am I going to be all right? Everybody's looking at me. You come out of your 25 meters and there's all these people standing there screaming your name, clapping, shouting. Boom, you feel amazing. Yes, you were last. That's the other thing that's just come up. A load of us, 80 of us, have just come back from the World Ice Championships in Tallinn. I heard a lot of it at the beginning of the week. I'm going to come last. I'm going to come last. And I was like, yep, 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 you probably are. Maybe you're not. Who knows? But I guarantee you, when you hit that line, and these were 25-meter races, when you hit that wall on the other side, you're going to get up the ladder, you're going to turn round, and you are going to feel amazing. And the majority of the races was on the Thursday when we were out there. I was exhausted by 5 o'clock. I had 80 people coming out of the water going, yes, I'm amazing. Look at me. I'm amazing. Whereas 35 seconds before, they were quivering in the changing rooms. I can't do this. I hate you, Sian. I don't know why we're here. And I'm like, yep, yep, yep. Come on. Move it along. And so it's those small wins. And then out of those 80 people, nobody expected to get a medal. We actually had quite a few medals when we were out there. And so that's the next step. Blimey, I'm actually quite good at this. It was 0.6 degree water most of the time. It was real ice swimming stuff out there. These people were incredible. We had people from all around the world. We had world champions there. And next to them, we had blue tits swimming along, standing on the start line going, yay. And then on the fin line, yay. You know, all of this. But for those people who went out there and enjoyed it, they will go along. They will go along again and enjoy it. Some of them are going to go along again to win. So that's another step. And so if you don't start, you never know what's going to happen. Stop worrying about what you think is going to happen. It probably won't happen. Something else will happen. And if it's something you don't like, the adrenaline at the time will help you fight through it. But it might also be something that you really like and you had no idea that that was in you. So all these small steps can lead to bigger things or not. That one first small step might be all you need, but you'll still feel amazing because you took it.
Well, I think they compound in a way that adds to your own self-esteem. And I think through self-esteem, you get to a better mental place or better mental maintenance. And which is sort of opposed to this actually seeking comfort all the time as a way to solve or foster better mental health actually doesn't solve that. And I think there's this weird, I mean, Eloise and I's first date was in a cold pond, right? We had a cold dip for our first date. We love cold swimming. We love being outdoors in nature. We do it for fun. But there's something about the combination of community and cold, which seems to bind people together more than, you could go to the pub with those people. But it's different. It's a very different thing. And the pub is comfortable. And going in cold water in, January the 4th is really quite a jarring experience, or it can be, right? It's not pleasant. And there's this whole theme of through discomfort, I get small wins that boost my self-esteem. And actually, I feel confident about myself. And I think that coupled with the community is a really potent combination. I want to bring back to fun. You mentioned fun a lot. And I think the modern world and just pursuit actually loses sight of fun. How important is fun in life, Sian?
It's really important. I mean, I love your seeking comfort all the time. I think that's amazing. It's good to have some fun, particularly when you weren't necessarily expecting it to be fun. So again, when people talk about cold water, a lot of us have an experience of turning the shower cold by accident. And that horrific experience where we jump away and we scream because it was awful. Showers are meant to be warm. So I've never really understood this cold shower thing before you go cold swimming. And I always say to people, no, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not right. Showers are meant to be warm. We go in to enjoy them and refresh ourselves and cleanse, don't we? So, I mean, my mother was a cold shower person. She'd always have a warm shower and turn it cold. And I do as well, because
Your
that's
mother sounds terrifying, by the
yes,
way.
she was.
Yeah.
She was.
The old suppress and repress and suppress view of mental health as well, wasn't?
Thankfully, she was a very funny woman as well, and so I she would have loved the blue tits. She would have thought the whole thing was just fantastic. But I do the cold shower, so I'm contradicting myself here, but it's because I've grown up doing it. But this theory that you should start in cold showers before you go into the cold water, I don't get this,
I haven't
because
heard that.
well, it's Wim Hof. You start off in the shower.
Is it?
So
Oh, yeah,
so
no.
and
Why?
so men as well. It's a completely different subject here, and I am being sexist, but creatures that are male tend to like the Wim Hof because it's a plan. It has a plan. It starts off in the shower where you can scream, I think, in private, maybe, and then I'm down. Maybe I'm pretty sure it's Wim Hof, but maybe not. But men like to do the cold shower thing, and they'll say, "Oh yes, well I've been doing 6 weeks of cold showering, so now I think I'm ready." So anyhow, I say to people, don't do the cold shower thing, because it's just going to terrify you. And
That's really interesting. If I just want to double click on that, because as you said, Blue Tit starts off as a female group and specifically no purpose to it. Just come and we'll just see what happens. Open for exploration, right? Safe space for it can be whatever you want.
yeah,
Men need a point to do it. Not always, on average. I'm very guilty of it. I mean, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? What's the point? Why am I going for a cold swim? Is it these hormonal benefits? Is it this? Is it that? And I actually think that men can learn a lot from the more stereotypical kind of explore approach than opposed to just exploiting. And I think that's, well, at least one lesson I've learned from my conversation with you so far is, I think when you have time to explore, you invite more fun into your life, as opposed to I'm just going for this. I'm closed-minded to what may come in.
I was asked. I spoke on a panel at the NEC Outdoor Expo last year, and this question came up. And I don't really like saying it, because I always think I am being a bit sexist with when I say the men women thing. But the question came up: why do more women do this than men? And thankfully, and I stuttered for a moment, because I thought, oh, I don't know, I don't really know. But we had a man on the panel, and he is a very competitive, lovely, competitive man. And he said, well, quite simply, because men are competitive. And I thought, yeah, perhaps men are more competitive than women. I don't know. I don't like going into this area, because I don't like doing this stereotypical thing. But I think women are better what are they better at? They're better at sitting down and not doing nothing, but just talking about nothing, about being together for no particular reason then.
Mm.
And so that we're seeing more and more men now. Interestingly, all the groups are, in the last 6 months, more and more men. I don't know why. It'll be some social media thing. It'll be some media thing that's happened or whatever. Or maybe now men are seeing more pictures of men doing it. But they do come along, and I'm not a fan of single sex groups, and I know they have their place. Of course they do. But I like it when people who identify however they identify come together, because I like the richness of that. I love that different people come along. I've never, it's never sat well with me, single sex groups, because we all have something to offer. Doesn't
Mm.
matter how we identify. So I'm never comfortable talking with about why men do this and women do that, because I just think, oh come on, let's just get together and
Yeah.
do it and have some fun. And we do have fun. And I also understand that women then, let's say, might not feel comfortable with men because they think the men are looking at them when they get undressed. You have to come along to realize that doesn't happen. We
Well,
all,
and the other way around, the men might be conscious that the females are looking at
yes, yeah, they may have, of course,
them.
yes, but it doesn't happen. We don't do it when you're getting undressed, and yes, knickers go flying off in the wind and towels fall down, and we all scream and we show each other. And I mean, sometimes we some of the men we know, and something's happened, and I'll go, look away. Look away. Nothing to see here. They're not looking. They've already looked
Yeah.
away, because that's what we do. And again, they're concentrating on themselves, not on you. But
But you seem like the type of person who can get away with that kind of
yeah,
behavior. You know, you're very very charismatic, Sean. The one question I want to ask is, I feel that everyone has a niche, and the job is to find that niche, and there's space for your own unique, wonderful niche in the world, whatever that looks like. And you know, if that's being an accountant, it's an accountant. If it's being ex friend, whatever it is, not prescriptive. And it seems like you've really found that. and you found your unique talent of, whether it's encouraging people to get in the cold or even just encouraging them to get along, and building this culture where you come down for a dip and the air is easy. It's welcoming, it's open, it's accepting. What advice would you have for people? And actually, sorry, on that, I think if the group wasn't as open, you don't get the same behavior. And I think actually it's quite unique what you have built and fostered, which is a safe environment to do something quite unusual for most people. What advice would you have for people who want to find their own niche and that's authentically them?
Within the blue tit groups?
Within their own lives, because it seems like you've found your own personal wonderful niche that's authentic to you. What would you say to other people who want to find the same thing?
I suppose my standard answer to all of it is don't overthink things, because I used to as well when I started running. The night before my first marathon, I don't think I got any sleep, spent most of it on the loo, cried at one point, all of this, and my entire family, so my husband had come along with my 5 kids. I mean, the day was probably more of a nightmare for him than me, to be honest, looking after them all, because I was out there for quite some time. And I got home that night, and this was the first time I thought about all the things that I thought were going to happen to me. And they were, what if I make a fool of myself being number one? What if I fall? What if I'm last? What if nobody likes me? What if I don't enjoy it? All of these things. None of those things happened. The one thing that did happen was my little toenail came off. And when I took my shoe off, my sock was covered in blood, and there was this toenail waggling around somewhere. And I looked down, and it looked like like I'd been in some dreadful accident. And I thought, when did that happen then, I wonder? So the adrenaline of what I was doing had totally taken me through all of this, looked at this toenail and afterwards went, wow, that's like a badge of honor, that is. And then, of course, years later, I found no runners have got toenails. They all come off, whatever. So I overthought everything. So when we went out to Tallinn, we kind of knew the water was going to be under 1 degree. And I have been having swimming lessons recently, well, for the last couple of years, and my swimming has improved. Again, I'm not going to be winning. Well, I didn't think I was going to be winning things. But as the lessons have progressed, I have started to, for the first time in my life, think that I'm actually not a bad swimmer. So up here, I'm quite capable of starting things and hopefully finishing things. But I'm not very fast. Technique has never been something that I've been particularly good at. So I overthinking it again in Tallinn, overthinking, am I going to make a fool of myself? Because now I think I am a swimmer. So I was saying to everybody, I've become a racing snake now. I'm amazing, just to make people laugh more than anything. But in my head, oh, you've got to prove something now. You've been having coaching. All these people know you've been having coaching. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. All these things, no matter what step you're on, there's always something that you worry about. And of course, nothing happened. Everything was fine. And, everything was, it went smoothly and swimmingly when we were out there. So it's the overthinking of things. Stop overthinking things. Don't always worry what's going to happen to you, because it probably won't. Or you'll be in a situation that you couldn't have ever thought of. And so when this thing does happen to you, you deal with it. You sort it out and you feel amazing. And I think that's probably one of my biggest things in my life, is I constantly now overthink things like this morning. Oh, am I going to be tongue-tied? Am I going to make a fool of myself? Am I just going to come over as some stupid big-headed old woman who's done this and that? Of course, that never happens. So my advice to people is, with anything really, take that first step with a friend if necessary. I say that a lot to people when they say they want to join the Blue Tits. Find a friend. It doesn't have to be somebody who's vaguely interested in swimming. If that friend is there to support you, find somebody who will be by your side and take that step. And again, going back to what my mother said, if you didn't like it, don't do it again. You will still remember that you did it. That little win will still be in your brain. I didn't want to do it. I felt really nervous, but I did it. I didn't like it. Oh, it was awful. Oh my goodness me. You've still got a story to tell. You've still got something to say to people. It was dreadful. It was so, I can't imagine why anybody does it. Ha, ha, ha. Doesn't matter. It was still a win that you did it. And it might have been enough for you to think, well, I turned up to that group of people that I've never met in my life. I got into that water that was horrific. It was horrific, but I did it. I'm going to try and join another group. I might take up running instead. It's still something that will encourage you. If we do all of these things in our brain, I tried this, I tried that, I tried it. And then the story might be 10 years down the line. I tried 28 different sports, but you know what? I eventually found archery, and that was the one for me. And that was happened with my son. So all my children have been sporty, but one of my sons was not really. He was a bit scared of the water. He didn't like the horses very much that we had here. And I loved being part of all the sports that the children did. And I wanted him to be part of something. And we went along to one of these try archery days, and he picked up a bow, and the coach said, you're aiming at that gold, that yellow bit in the middle, but don't worry, a lot of people don't get it the first time. So he picks up the bow, he aims, bang, the arrow goes straight into the goal. And so the coach said, oh, well done, well done, now see if you can do that again. So he continued to send all these arrows down the line into the goal. And then the laughing and the cheering of everybody around suddenly turned, particularly to the coach, to like, so you've never done this before? And he said, no, no, I've never done this before. And he said, well, if you're ever looking for a coach, I'll be your coach. 5 years down the line, he's shooting for Wales.
Oh,
Um,
right.
and I'm shooting for Wales. My husband is shooting for Wales. And one of my daughters was on the Welsh team. And we were all archers, so all seven of us became archers, but particularly four of us, became highly competitive archers who were winning. And so it
Wow.
was that one step. We found that one thing that he was good at. And then he became competent on the water. He rode the horses. Now he's on our local RNLI crew. He has 3 boats that he spends his time on. He goes out, he runs, he swims, he does everything else. But for years and years of his life, he just used to shake his head and say, no, I can't, I can't, I can't. So he's one of my examples as well of just keep on trying,
Mm,
keep trying, just leave the house, just try something. But joining a group is also it's a scary thing to do. And when you've done it, you'll feel really good about
mm.
yourself. So don't overthink, take a step.
I love that. I mean, having the courage to take that first step, and however you foster up that courage through a friend or a group or whatever it is, I think leads to more compounding of good things over time. I mean, there's a nice line that the way presents itself by walking it, right? I think too many people have.
Oh, you're coming out with some nice lines. I'm writing them down. I'm writing
Well,
down.
well, quotes save original thought, right? And I have none of that, so it's yeah, helpful for me. But I think people have way too much emphasis on plans, and once the all plan is all set, and I'll figure it out, and actually just take the first step and see how it goes. Um, I've learned so much from you today, Sean. It was really, really fun to talk to you, and had a blast. I'd love to come for a cold dip at some point. So I think if Eloise and I find ourselves in Pembrokeshire, we'll come find you.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. Or go to another group that's near you. There might be one.
Yeah, great. I mean, how actually on that? How many flocks? How many groups are there worldwide?
Well, when you said you were counting, then I was at the beginning, I was going to say, well, good for you because I've never counted.
Let me know.
No, yeah, now that we have a team, so we've got our HQ here in Pembrokeshire, and we have a part-time and voluntary. Most of them are voluntary. They work. I don't really do anything with the running of the Bluetooth. I mean, yes, I'm there twice a week. I'm there, and we all talk. But all the gubbins is done by other people now. I just do the fabulous stuff, like go on
Yes.
podcasts and things. But we have about 200 groups around the world now,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
and that,
And
that can change because some of them close and then a new one opens, and it's not for everybody, and it does take a little bit of running. And all the people who run the groups are volunteers, and it can be as much work as you want it to be. So we sometimes groups just say goodbye, and people go off and swim by themselves because they don't necessarily want to be part of this worldwide organization now. You know, they don't want all the advertising. They don't want to wear the kit. They just want to swim quietly by themselves. And that is fantastic. If we helped people take that first step, then whatever steps they take in the future, we love it if they are taking it with the blue tits. But if they don't, then that our job was done, really.
Well, I think it's a wonderful job. I mean, you found your unique gift and you've used that to contribute to society in a positive way. I think that's such an admirable thing, something I definitely want to emulate in my own way. So thank you so much for coming on, Sian. I've learnt loads and I hope we do this again sometime.
Thank you very much, Ben.